Echoes of Fomalhaut is a magazine written by Gabor, designed for the Advanced Edition rules. The Gallery of Rising Tombs is the 6th issue. The formatting is very dense and inspired by the style of old TSR or Judges Guild, but don't let first impressions deceive you. The contents of this zine are excellent. It contains a miniature city setting, 2 adventures, and some magic weapons. The zine starts with a point-crawl adventure through a mystical forest. Each node is interesting, evocative, and well described. There is just enough description to inspire the DM, but not too much to overwhelm. Elaboration on how each situation will play out is left to the DM, but enough information is provided to play out each encounter. As we shall see from the rest of the zine, Gabor generally presents a site or situation which can create a story as it is interacted with, rather than dictating a story which must be played out. This is in keeping with OSR principles and helps the DM customize the scenes to suit his purposes. The players may wish to swiftly pass through this forest and overcome its dangers, but there are plenty of opportunities for exploration, including a druidic burial site which, while it has many entrances, is difficult to access. The adventure is littered with runes and their translations, which can offer hints to the players if they can decipher them. This is a nice touch which adds lore not tied to a specific setting and can be elaborated upon in one's own campaign. There are a good mix of interesting and mundane enemies, non-combat ways of overcoming encounters, magical items to be discovered, and even ways to teleport to distant regions. This is RPG puzzle solving at its best, and will reward imaginative players. Gabor provides AD&D stats for the enemies in this adventure, as well as listing hit points in a way that can be crossed out during play. My preference is not to make any mark on the zine, so these hit point lists take up unnecessary space in my opinion, but I can see the utility for some, especially if you were to print off the adventure. The map of the forest is rudimentary and fulfills its purpose as a point crawl, but the map of the druid grave is somewhat disappointing. It is small, not gridded, and doesn't have a rough scale. A point crawl map for this area would have achieved the same results. The descriptions, on the other hand, are wonderfully evocative and inspiring, just long enough to spark the imagination and reference quickly in play. For example, the Lake of the Unburied Sun. Still leaden waters perpetually shrouded in shifting plumes of fog. A large funeral barge drifts in the middle, guarded by 4 wraiths wearing fine garbs, and a spectre king who warns approaching strangers. Only he who knows the wisdom of the times may see the unburied sun. Only he who possesses the egg of time may bring the gift of new life. This is a forbidden place, older than your destiny. The barge bears the intact body of the unburied son, a young prince from an era time forgot, brought here by his grieving father under the effects of a poison that cannot be cured. This could simply be a very interesting sight that the PCs discover, or it could even be the culmination of a whole adventure. Many of the encounters can be plundered for plot hooks and become the main reason for entering the Wandering Glade. Every site in the adventure has something interesting. There is no empty clearings or generic combats. Each encounter is something interesting for the players to interact with. The City of Vultures details a decaying city of mystery and intrigue, with a very old-school feel to it. The rituals, customs, and gods of the city are evocative and sinister, ripe for development. I'm not familiar with the inspirations, including M.A.R. Barker's Tecumel and Steve Jackson's Care, so I don't know how unique the ideas are here, but certainly what is presented is new and interesting to my eyes. Within 12 pages, there's enough information provided to run at least the foundations of an urban campaign with a unique flair. There are no rules in this section, everything is descriptive and could be used for any system. The map of the city, provided in the zine as well as on a larger printout, is serviceable but crude and difficult to read. One of my main complaints is that the cartography in the zine is lacking. Although I like the homemade amateurish nature of the maps, which adds to the tone of the zine, in practice they are of limited utility in-game. The exception to this is the Overland Hex map, which is of much better quality, hinting, perhaps, at its importance in the campaign setting in which these zines are sourced from. There are several buildings and sites briefly described that can be expanded upon, as well as 3 briefly described legendary dungeons that can be used as the basis for an adventure. Again, descriptions are short and flavourful, expressing just enough to spark the imagination. What is described are not long histories and backgrounds which players will never interact with. This is information that can actually be used in a session to summon a certain atmosphere and create interesting events. The City of Vultures is the setting for the most evocative part of the magazine, the Gallery of Rising Tombs. I can perhaps detect the subtle influence of the Tome of Adventure design in that title. This adventure doesn't handhold the PCs with proposals of adventure hooks, aside from the line that such a place would be a very lucrative visit. Instead, a site is presented and the DM is expected to find a way to get the adventurers to investigate it. This is a good way to present an adventure site, as it is easier to fit into one's home campaign. A rumour table may be used here, but to capture the adventure site fully, such a table would be quite long. A better option is for the DM to pick the most interesting rooms from the adventure and hint at those before the characters delve. In this adventure, the PCs find their way into the underworld beneath the city, a location mysterious, dangerous, in places ancient, and sometimes alien. There are 3 possible ways to gain access to the temples and tombs beneath the city, each with its own obstacles and challenges. There is no set way in which the characters should enter, and options for guile, brawn, diplomacy, and magic are available. This is wonderful, and gives the players many options on how they will approach the adventure. There is plenty of information provided to the DM to deal with the adventurers, and to complicate their progress. The descriptions are delightful and help to summon the scene and its inhabitants to mind. Within the house of Hissam Singh we read, heavy stale smells and creaking floorboards, light beams through old wooden shutters, all nailed shut to deter housebreakers. A simple description, but evocative and easy to describe to the players, utilising all the senses and avoiding bland descriptions of room size. Another description later in the adventure reads, rows of brass bars surround a richly ornamented marble hall of columns, oil lamps and braziers. Incessant rumbling of machinery, rats and their filth are everywhere, as well as bowls of milk and countless baubles left by devotees. There are always rat priests behind the bars, ready to receive ceremonial offerings in exchange for evil advice. The motives of the NPCs in the house of Hissam Singh are clear, even though described with just a few lines, and importantly, most of the ancillary information provided is pertinent to the adventure, and will impact the PCs in some way. There is not a lot of wasted text on NPC backgrounds, personalities, and the history of their establishment. This is all left to the DM to embellish as he pleases, if it even comes up. This is exactly the amount of information that should be included in an adventure, and inspires the reader to get the module to the table, rather than waste time considering a whole lot of redundant information. An example NPC, an insane knife grinder murderer, Hojasp, who only communicates through his locked door. In his delusions, he sees himself as a noble lord, a warrior of the tiger, killing in the name of the Brotherhood. In a secret niche behind the wall, he keeps the mummified cadaver of his wife. He is furtive, nerves perpetually on edge. This is one of the longer NPC descriptions, but it is packed with possibilities, not only for story but also for characterization, and raises many questions. Alternative entrances to the Undercity can be found at the seedy Shadow Puppet Theatre, said to be haunted, or within the bowels of the Temple of the God of the Rats. With these 3 buildings, the tone of the setting and its people are firmly established, and it is a mysterious and sinister place. The art is quite fitting to the subject matter. The Undercity consists of 4 dungeon levels, tombs not only to the dead but also to another time when the city was technologically superior. Each has a theme which differentiates it from the other levels, yet all of them retain some consistency to one another. They are sinister tombs, with a slight sci-fi or steampunk feel, including strange machinery, a mecha droid, even a monorail. However, these elements are not the main focus. This is still a fantasy setting. The sub-levels are very dangerous, not just due to the undead enemies, but the traps, spells and devices. Players should not expect to survive unscathed, and intelligence and problem solving will be required to progress. On one level, there is a pervasive poison mist that fills the level, reminiscent of the hidden shrine of Tomoe-chan. These dungeons are enticing and mysterious, most suitable for multiple delves. It is unlikely a single party will explore the entire complex. The dungeon is not crawling with enemies, and those present have a logical reason for their existence in the tomb. The enemies are interesting, unique undead, including a horror that prowls one level, alerted by noise. I like it when a dungeon has a single specific enemy that occupies the area, repeatedly harassing the characters as they explore. The dungeon is very interactive, and likely much time will be spent investigating and experimenting within the rooms. This dungeon adventure is full of character, sinister, intriguing, and dangerous. Many sessions could be filled with exploring this location, and players are unlikely to exhaust all of its secrets. The final chapter is a list of magic items, each of which is quite interesting and can be used instead of the bland +1 or +2 weapons normally seen in dungeons. Some of the effects are non-mechanical but still interesting, with the possibility of inspiring events in-game. My favourite one listed is the Frogbringer, an ordinary-looking +1 longsword, whose bearer will constantly be harassed by giant and killer frogs, even in his most intimate moments. In terms of usability, the zine is well formatted and easy to use. There are occasional shorthand things in the text which could use some clarification. These are not too difficult to work out though. The format is old school and charming. Despite the homemade nature of the zine, it has a lot of character and harkens back to the presentation of old Judges Guild products, a clear inspiration. The Wandering Glade can be easily inserted into any campaign as a side trek or as a main adventure. The City of Vultures and the Gallery of Rising Tombs are much more unique and would be more difficult to include in a homemade campaign without some special preparation. But the character and tone are wonderfully evocative and suit the old school swords and sorcery genre. The Gallery of Rising Tombs is an adventure site not designed to be defeated quickly. It is a dungeon that can be explored multiple times over the course of many sessions, and returned to by multiple groups. It is unlikely that an adventuring party will map out the whole thing by themselves. It would be good if there was a rumour table or list of possible hooks to help the DM find motivation for the players, though understandable why there is not. There is no read-aloud text or bullet points for room contents, but the descriptions are concise, well written, and relevant, so easy to use. Though I'm not a fan of the maps, the actual layouts of the dungeons are good, with variety, multiple entrances, and split levels. Overall, this is a very good zine with a great deal of content that could provide for months of play. The style of the zine is a mix of homemade, archaic, and useful. Each of these synonyms should be taken in the most positive of ways. I love the design style. It is worth noting that Gabor Lux is Hungarian and English is not his first language. Despite that, his command of the English language is exceptional, and it is quite a wonder that he is able to create such evocative yet brief descriptions. Bravo! The zine is available in print at Gabor's site or as a PDF at Drive-Thru RPG. Let me know what you think about this great little magazine, and if you have enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching.